Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah, happy to be here.
We got this really kind of fascinating fictional story, and it got me thinking about some of the stuff we've been talking about lately.
Oh, yeah.
So it's this whole what if scenario.
Okay.
Like, what if, and this is where it gets interesting, a prominent black fraternity
Mm-hmm.
at an HBCU
Right.
decided to partner up with, get this, BRICS nations
Yeah. That's
instead of,
instead of the U.S.
yeah,
And it gets,
thinking about the current global landscape, it's not that far-fetched.
well, yeah, I mean, a lot of countries are definitely looking for alternatives to the U.S.-led world order.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And this story we're diving into today,
Okay.
it's called, get ready for this, The Tale of BRICS Nations and the HBCU Black Frat Brotherhood Great Collaboration.
Wow.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
It uses satire to explore this whole idea.
Okay.
And it takes place during something called Global Allyship Week at a fictional HBCU,
Hmm.
where this fraternity is hosting representatives from, well, you guessed it, BRICS and the USA.
I like how they set it up. It's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah.
Right from the start, they've got this blend of fried chicken, cologne, and international diplomacy.
It definitely grabs your attention.
Yeah, for sure. Sets the tone.
It's not your typical diplomatic summit, that's for sure.
No, not at all.
But beyond the humor,
Mm-hmm.
there's this whole other layer.
Right.
Because they chose a black fraternity
Yeah.
and an HBCU as the focus, and I think that adds a whole other dimension.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really smart choice by the author because, I mean, you have to think about the history of HBCUs. They were created as safe spaces for Black students to get an education, when they faced all that segregation and discrimination.
Yeah, definitely.
So by placing the story there, it brings in these themes of identity, history, self-determination.
Yeah, and it all ties back to that question of, like, who do you align with when you're looking for a better future? All right, so let's jump into this competition.
Okay.
The U.S. representative, he's the first one up,
Mhm.
and he gives this, classic pitch, democracy, capitalism. He even throws in some basketball references.
Okay.
But, and this is interesting, the story mentions that the audience was totally silent.
Oh, wow.
So I'm wondering, do you think this is saying something about how people, especially younger generations, are starting to question those traditional American values?
It's possible, right? I mean, we're seeing a global shift.
Yeah.
A lot of countries, particularly in what's called the Global South.
Global South.
Yeah. So that's basically a term for nations that were, for a long time, under colonial rule.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're really trying to gain their independence, economically and politically.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these countries feel like the current global systems, which, let's be honest, often benefit Western powers,
Yeah,
haven't really done much for them.
that makes sense.
So in this context, the USA's pitch, even though it's familiar, it might not be as convincing as it used to be.
Yeah, so it's like what worked before might not work now,
Right.
especially with this new generation.
Yeah, and the story really reflects this
Mm-hmm.
by showing how other nations, like Brazil, they're taking a different approach.
Oh, yeah, Brazil's representative, she really focuses on the culture,
Yes.
that vibrancy, the inclusivity, even sustainability.
Mm.
And it seems to connect with the fraternity in a way that the USA's pitch just didn't.
Well, it's a different kind of appeal, right? It's more subtle.
Yeah, almost seductive,
Exactly, and I think it speaks to how diplomacy is changing.
How so?
It's not just about military power or economic dominance anymore.
Okay.
Soft power is becoming more and more important.
Soft power meaning.
It's the ability to influence through culture and shared values.
I see.
So it's like they're saying, hey, we understand what you're looking for. You want something different, something that aligns with your own culture and your own goals.
Right.
And that's where BRICS nations, they have a real opportunity,
Yeah.
With all their different cultures and perspectives, they can present themselves as a real alternative.
Okay, so let's get into how this all plays out.
Okay.
How do the other BRICS nations present themselves in this whole global allyship competition?
Well, each one brings something different to the table.
Okay.
Russia, for example, they take a pretty straightforward approach. They
Yeah.
emphasize energy security and stability.
So it's like, we're the reliable ones. We'll be there for you.
Exactly, a source of strength.
That's so different from the USA's focus on democracy and capitalism.
It is, and I think it shows that for some nations, stability and security might be more important.
Yeah,
Maybe because of their own history or their current political situation.
right.
It just goes to show how complex these global partnerships really are.
So we've got the U.S. sticking to its usual talking points, Brazil going for that cultural exchange,
Yeah.
Russia's offering stability. What about India? How do they position themselves?
India, they're represented by this woman named Ria, and she really focuses on growth.
Growth, like economic growth.
Yeah, and not just that, she talks about technological talent, cultural depth, and this idea of expanding the fraternity's reach, making them bigger and better in every way.
It's a pretty smart strategy.
It is. They're presenting themselves as a rising power, appealing to that ambition of wanting to be part of something big and exciting.
Yeah, plus, I love this detail. She serves everyone chai.
Oh, yeah.
It's a small thing, but it's a nice way to connect, through culture.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that diplomacy isn't just about signing agreements.
Right.
It's also about building relationships.
Okay, so we've got the USA, Brazil, Russia, and India. What about China? Where do they fit into all of this?
China's representative, he takes a very strategic approach.
Okay.
He emphasizes China's role in shaping the future.
The future, how so?
Through infrastructure, trade, opportunity, all the things that China is investing heavily in.
So it's like they're saying, hey, join us. We're building the future. And they want the fraternity to be a part of it.
Yeah, they're projecting this image of China as a global leader.
A major player.
And they're inviting the fraternity to come along for the ride.
It's interesting how each nation's pitch really reflects who they are.
Yeah.
Their identity, their goals, their worldview.
It's like they're each holding up a mirror to the fraternity.
On a mirror.
Yeah, forcing them to really look at themselves and figure out what they want their place in the world to be.
It's a pretty powerful dynamic.
It is, and that's what makes this story so compelling.
Because it's not just a simple choice.
Yeah.
It's about this community grappling with their identity, trying to figure out how they fit into this changing world.
Exactly, trying to decide which path is the right one for them.
And which future they want to be a part of.
Right, exactly.
This fraternity's got a tough decision to make, that's for sure.
Yeah, each partner is offering a completely different path.
And then the story takes it up a notch. They have a Q&A session.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and things get kind of heated. Yeah, it's like all the politeness goes out the window, and they really start to, lay it all out.
So what happens? Does it turn into a fight?
Not a physical fight,
Okay.
but definitely some arguments, like the U.S. representative, he's feeling the pressure,
Yeah.
and he accuses BRICS of being un-American.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it does not go over well.
That.
It's like he thinks the USA's values are like the only way.
The default.
Yeah, the only acceptable path.
It's interesting, right? Because it feels like maybe the U.S. is struggling to stay on top.
You think so?
Well, for a long time, they were the most powerful, economically, militarily.
Yeah, for sure.
But things are changing. Other countries are rising. And it's getting harder for the U.S. to hold on to that power.
And this fraternity, they represent all these countries that are questioning whether the U.S. is really the best choice anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And the story, it captures that tension perfectly.
Right.
Like when the U.S. guy makes that comment about being un-American, the story says that Brazil's rep, she rolls her eyes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Russia's got, he mutters something in Russian.
Probably not nice.
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, we're not playing by your rules anymore.
We're done with this.
Exactly. We have our own values.
Our own way of doing things.
And we're not going to be intimidated by you.
And that's a really important point, right?
Yeah.
It's about these nations wanting agency.
Agency.
Like, they don't want to just be told what to do. They want to make their own decisions, shape their own future.
That makes sense.
They're not content being just, passive recipients of aid or whatever.
Right.
They want to be active participants.
And that ties into what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
About the global South and this desire for a multipolar world.
Exactly. A world where power isn't just in the hands of a few.
Yeah.
But it's spread out more evenly.
More voices at the table.
Yeah, more perspective.
There's more balance.
Right, and that idea, it's gaining traction all over the world.
As more and more countries are saying, hey, we want something different.
Yeah, we want to break free from these old systems.
Systems that haven't really worked for them.
Exactly.
So the story's not just reflecting what's happening now. It's also hinting at what the future might hold.
Yeah.
A future where global power is completely different.
New world order. see.
And this fraternity,
Mm-hmm.
by choosing to explore these BRICS partnerships,
Yeah,
they become a symbol of that shift.
of that change that's happening.
Okay, so going back to that Q&A,
Okay.
the other BRICS reps, how do they respond to that whole un-American
Oh,
thing?
yeah. And India, they take different approaches.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me more.
So China's rep, he's very pragmatic.
Okay.
He just points to the numbers.
The numbers, like economic numbers?
Yeah, you know, China's economic power, their growing influence.
It's like he's saying, look, we're a major player, whether you like it or not. You're better off working with us.
It's just a reality.
And it's a pretty effective strategy.
Yeah, sometimes actions speak louder than words.
Right.
And India, what about them?
India's rep, she takes a more diplomatic route.
Okay.
She talks about how competition actually makes everyone stronger.
Interesting.
It's a way to acknowledge the tension,
Yeah.
but turn it into something positive.
Something that can drive progress.
Exactly.
Like, we're not afraid to compete. It makes us better.
And it shows that India is confident,
Mm-hmm.
ready to play on the world stage.
Yeah. Okay, so we have all these different approaches.
Yeah.
But what about South Africa?
Mm-hmm.
They seem to really connect with the fraternity, remember?
Yeah, they had that strong bond.
But how do they handle this tension?
South Africa's rep, Zanel, she stays focused on her message.
Which is,
Trust and connection.
right, that shared heritage.
Yeah, it's a reminder that relationships matter.
Especially in this world of politics and power struggles. It's like she's saying, we're not just offering you a deal.
This is about partnership,
About shared values.
mutual respect.
And it clearly resonated with the fraternity.
Yeah, the story makes it clear that they were still open to working with BRICS.
Despite all the negativity from the U.S. rep.
Right, they saw past the rhetoric.
Okay, so after all that, all the back and forth, who do they choose?
Well, the story says they take their time, they deliberate,
Mm-hmm.
and they make a bold decision.
Drum roll, please.
They choose BRICS.
Wow. That's a big statement.
It is.
What do you think made them choose BRICS in the end?
Well, the story highlights a few things.
Okay.
First, there's the historical context.
Right. As a black fraternity at an HBCU.
They're very aware of the USA's history, with race and equality.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So even though the U.S. rep talks about democracy and opportunity, they might not see that matching up with their own experiences.
Like, you're not really living up to your ideals. And it shows that the past can have a big impact on relationships.
Even on a global scale.
Right. It's not just about what's happening right now.
No, history matters.
Okay, so that's one reason. What else?
Well, there's also the appeal of BRICS.
Yeah, like what?
Each nation, in their own way, presented a different vision.
Different from the USA.
Yeah, a world where power is more balanced.
More shared.
Yeah, more collaboration, more respect for different
A
perspectives.
more inclusive world.
Exactly.
And that vision, it resonated with the fraternity.
Yeah, they saw it as a chance to build a better future.
Not just for themselves.
But for everyone.
And the story actually shows the benefits of that partnership.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Yeah, they create all these amazing programs.
Mm-hmm.
International exchanges, scholarships, even a global mentorship network,
Wow, that's impressive.
connecting their members with leaders all over the BRICS countries.
So they're not just making a statement.
Yeah,
They're actually taking action.
creating real opportunities.
And that's really important.
Right.
Because it shows that choosing a different path
Mm-hmm.
can lead to real, tangible benefits.
Especially for those who have been excluded in the past.
Exactly.
It's like we don't have to wait for the old system to change.
We can create our own opportunities.
We can build our own future.
Exactly.
It's a powerful message.
It is, but we also have to be realistic.
Okay, how so?
There are always risks when you do something new.
Right, when you step outside the familiar.
What kind of risks are we talking about here?
Well, think about it. BRICS countries are very different.
Yeah.
Different political systems,
Different cultures.
different economic priorities.
Yeah, navigating all that, it can be tough.
It's not always easy to find common ground.
And there's also the risk of getting caught up in global conflicts.
Oh, right, like between the USA and BRICS.
Yeah, if those tensions escalate,
Yeah,
anyone aligned with BRICS might face pressure.
pressure from the US.
Yeah, economic pressure, political isolation.
Maybe even military threats.
It's a complicated landscape.
So it's not a simple choice.
No, not at all.
It's not like, oh, we chose BRICS and everything's perfect now.
It's going to be challenging.
There will be obstacles.
Compromises.
Tough decisions.
But the story also shows that those challenges can be overcome
How?
through planning, communication, a commitment to working together.
So it's about being prepared.
Yeah, and being willing to put in the effort.
Okay, so the story ends with the fraternity thriving with BRICS.
Yeah, they make it work.
What about the U.S., though? How did they react to being, rejected?
Well, the story says the U.S. rep sends an email.
Oh, an email.
Yeah, saying no hard feelings.
Is that sincere, do you think?
Who knows, right?
Yeah, but either way,
Mm.
fraternities moved on.
They're focused on their future with BRICS.
So they don't need the USA's approval anymore.
Yeah, they found their own path.
And they're confident about it.
That's a powerful message.
It is. It's about finding your own voice
Making your own choices.
and not letting the old powers dictate your future. That's really what this story's all about.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that we all have choices.
And those choices can change the world.
Whether it's on a global scale,
Or in our own lives.
the decisions we make matter.
It's really mind-blowing to think about how this story, even though it's fiction, reflects what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, it's like a microcosm of global politics.
This idea of a black fraternity at an HBCU choosing BRICS over the U.S.
It's a powerful image.
And we talked about how this shift towards a multipolar world could be a good thing, especially for countries that have been, on the sidelines for so long.
Right, the ones that haven't benefited from the old systems.
But you also mentioned some challenges, some risks involved in these new partnerships.
Yeah, it's not a simple equation.
Can you talk more about that? Like, what are some of the things that could go wrong?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is just the sheer complexity of it all.
Complexity.
Yeah, think about it. BRICS is a group of very different countries.
Yeah, we talked about that.
They have different political systems, different ways of thinking about the economy, social issues, everything.
Right, they're not a monolith.
Exactly. So partnering with BRICS means you have to be willing to understand those differences.
And to adapt, right?
Yeah, you can't just impose your own way of doing things.
It's like trying to build something together, but everyone's got different blueprints.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine trying to build a house with architects from 5 different countries
Yeah, each with their own style.
and their own ideas about what a house should look like
Exactly. You got to find a way to make it work
to create something cohesive.
while still respecting those individual differences.
Right, finding that balance is key.
And then on top of that, you have the risk of getting caught in the crossfire.
Fire.
Yeah, between the U.S. and BRICS.
Like if those tensions escalate.
Exactly, because as BRICS gains more power, more influence, it's likely to create friction with the U.S.
Because the U.S. doesn't want to give up its dominance.
Right, they're used to being at the top.
So anyone who aligns with BRICS might face consequences.
Yeah, they might become a target.
It's a high-stakes game.
It is. There are real risks involved.
So it's not just about choosing a different side.
No, it's about navigating a whole new landscape,
With new challenges, new dangers.
but also potentially new rewards.
Right. The story does show that the fraternity ultimately succeeds,
Yeah, they find a way to make it work.
which suggests that maybe, despite the risks, this multipolar world could be a better alternative.
It's a possibility, and I think that's what the story is trying to get us to think about.
To consider all the angles.
To weigh the pros and cons.
To have those difficult conversations.
Because ultimately, the choices we make, they have consequences.
Yeah, they shape the world we live in.
And that brings us back to the question we posed earlier.
About what values and goals should guide our decisions.
Yeah, whether we're talking about countries or communities or individuals.
We all have a role to play.
In shaping the future of global relations.
So let's put it to our listeners.
Yeah, what would you do?
Imagine you're in the shoes of that fraternity.
You have to choose.
Stick with the familiar, the U.S.
Or embrace the unknown, BRICS.
What would you prioritize?
Economic growth,
Social justice,
environmental protection,
cultural exchange.
security.
It's a tough call, right?
It is, but it's a conversation we need to have.
Because the world is changing
The old order is fading.
and new possibilities are emerging.
So it's up to us to decide what kind of future we want,
To think critically,
to make informed choices.
to engage with the world in a meaningful way.
This story, even though it's satirical, it gives us a lot to think about.
It challenges our assumptions
It makes us question the status quo.
and reminds us that we all have a stake in shaping the future.
Yeah, the world is what we make it.
So let's make it something good,
Something just,
something sustainable.
and something that benefits everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you continue to explore these
To
ideas,
stay curious.
to challenge yourself,
And to engage in those tough conversations.
because that's how we create a better world.
Together.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a future that's worthy of